As luxury condos transformed the neighborhood, 83-year-old Ezra Collins refused millions for his weathered home. Developers mocked the senile old fool online, cut his utilities, and surrounded his property with construction. When a compassionate assistant finally visited to deliver their final offer, she discovered something that none of the executives saw. The mocking CEO took one look at her report and broke down in tears. In the rapidly changing landscape of Oak Hill, a once quiet suburban neighborhood was transforming before everyone's eyes. Historic family homes disappeared one by one, replaced by gleaming steel and glass luxury condominiums. Construction machinery rumbled day and night, the soundtrack of progress according to some, the death knell of community according to others. Yet amid this relentless wave of development stood one stubborn holdout, a small, weathered house with faded blue paint and wooden shutters. The modest two-bedroom home belonged to Ezra Collins, an 83-year-old widower who had lived there for over 5 decades. His resistance against selling had become something of a local legend. Pinnacle Properties, the development company behind the neighborhood's transformation, had meticulously acquired every property on the block except Ezra's. Their initial offers started reasonably at $500,000, already well above market value for the aging structure. But as construction deadlines loomed and investors grew impatient, that number quickly escalated. The lead developer, Marshall Wilson, projected a street map onto the conference room wall, with one small patch highlighted in red, Ezra's property. He explained to the board that they had increased their offer to an unprecedented $3.5 million last week. Yet the old man remained unmoved, offering no explanation for his refusal. The room filled with uncomfortable laughter as Marshall pulled up photos of Ezra's home. He showed everyone the peeling paint, the weathered porch steps, and the outdated exterior. One executive joked that the property wasn't worth a tenth of what they were offering. Another suggested that perhaps dementia was keeping the old fool from recognizing the opportunity before him. What began as frustration soon evolved into mockery. During lunch breaks, junior executives shared memes about the stubborn old man on company chat groups. The company's marketing director created a slideshow titled "The Most Expensive Roadblock in Town," which circulated through private social media channels. Meanwhile, construction proceeded around Ezra's property, leaving his house stranded on a small island of land amid towering cranes and concrete foundations. The once peaceful street was now a chaotic construction zone, with Ezra's home appearing increasingly out of place, a relic from another era surrounded by the skeletons of modern architecture. The developers, growing increasingly desperate, began employing less ethical tactics. They rerouted road access, forcing Ezra to navigate through muddy construction sites just to reach the main road. On 3 separate occasions, his power was mysteriously cut, always with profuse apologies about construction accidents from Pinnacle representatives. Yet nothing seemed to work. Ezra remained in his home, quietly going about his business despite the inconveniences. He never complained to the city council or sought media attention. In the Pinnacle boardroom, CEO Richard Barnes slammed his fist on the table in frustration, demanding to know why the old man is still holding out. After all the explanation, Richard made a final decision. They would make one last offer, $5 million, an amount so far above market value that refusing it would seem insane to anyone. And this time, instead of sending the usual aggressive negotiators, he would try a different approach. Alene, a junior project coordinator who had recently joined the company, volunteered for the assignment. Unlike her colleagues, she had expressed discomfort with the company's tactics against the elderly homeowner. Perhaps, she suggested, a more empathetic approach might succeed where pressure had failed. The following morning, Alene walked to Ezra's front door. She was surprised by what she found. Despite the chaos surrounding it, the walkway to his door had been freshly swept. Ezra answered her knock promptly. He stood tall despite his age, with silver hair neatly combed and wearing a pressed button-down shirt. His appearance contradicted the image of the senile, disheveled old man that had been portrayed in office jokes. He greeted Alene politely and invited her in for tea when she introduced herself as a Pinnacle representative. As Ezra prepared tea in the kitchen, Alene noticed a small stone memorial in the center of the garden, surrounded by vibrant flowers of every color. Despite construction dust coating everything else in sight, the memorial and flowers appeared freshly cleaned and tended. When Ezra returned with tea, they talked about everything except the very reason for Alene's visit. After listening patiently, Alene gently steered the conversation toward the purpose of her visit. She explained that Pinnacle was prepared to make a final, incredibly generous offer of $5 million for his property. She emphasized what such a sum could provide: a luxury condo in any part of town, financial security for the rest of his life, perhaps even money to leave to children or grandchildren. Ezra listened politely but remained silent on the matter. As an uncomfortable pause stretched between them, Alene found herself looking again toward the garden. She asked about it, commenting on how beautiful it was. The change in Ezra was immediate and profound. Tears welled up in his eyes. His hands began to tremble slightly as he set down his teacup. He began speaking softly, his voice barely audible above the distant construction noise. Hannah, his wife of 53 years, had passed away 3 years earlier. Throughout their long marriage, they had spent countless evenings in that garden, planting flowers, watching birds, and growing old together. Hannah's final wish was to be buried in the garden they both loved so dearly. The small memorial marked the spot where her ashes were scattered among her favorite flowers. With his voice breaking, Ezra revealed the promise he had made to his dying wife, that he would tend her garden until the day he joined her, ensuring her final resting place remained beautiful and cared for. How could he sell the land where Hannah rested? How could he allow bulldozers to tear up the soil that held her ashes? How could any amount of money replace the sacred trust of his final promise to his late wife? Alene left Ezra's home with a heavy heart and a complete understanding of his refusal. When she returned to Pinnacle headquarters, the executive team was waiting eagerly for news of his acceptance. Instead, she shared Ezra's story, describing the memorial garden and the promise that no amount of money could break. The room fell silent. The CEO, who had personally shared disparaging posts about Ezra that morning, buried his face in his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were red with tears. He admitted between sobs that he had lost his own wife just 5 years ago and could understand Ezra's devotion all too well. The next day, the entire executive team visited Ezra with an entirely new proposal. Pinnacle would redesign their project to incorporate his home and garden as the centerpiece of a public courtyard. They would name it Hannah's Garden, with a plaque honoring her memory. Ezra could remain in his home for life, with the property transferring to the development only after his passing. After a moment of quiet consideration, Ezra agreed, but with one condition: that Alene would personally oversee the construction around his property. The CEO agreed immediately. 6 months later, the luxury complex was taking shape with Hannah's Garden as its centerpiece. Marketing materials for the condominiums now highlighted this unique feature, an authentic piece of neighborhood history preserved within their modern development. Ezra's home remained untouched, surrounded by a beautifully designed courtyard that enhanced rather than overshadowed the memorial garden. The developers installed benches and subtle lighting that made the space accessible to residents while still respecting its private nature. Today, residents often see Ezra peacefully tending to Hannah's flowers, a living testament to devotion that transcends even death. The garden that once nearly derailed a multi-million-dollar development has become its most cherished feature, a quiet space of reflection amid urban luxury that reminds everyone of what truly matters beyond material wealth. And what about you? What would you refuse to sell, no matter how many millions were offered?